welcome to episode 23 of the Rock is George podcast. I'm your host, George Dionne. Be sure to check out past episodes of the Rock is George podcast at anchor.fm/rockisgeorge. You can pick your preferred podcasting platform, whether it's Google, Spotify, Apple, or many, many others, right from the main page. The podcast is now being featured on YouTube. You can head over to our YouTube page from rockisgeorge.com, the hub for the Rock is George podcast. I have some fun and interesting things coming to the YouTube page. Here's a little hint. The whiskey breaks that have been featured on past episodes of the Rock is George podcast, they're going to get their own little feature on the YouTube page. They're no longer going to appear in the middle of interviews on the Rock is George podcast. Episode 23 of the Rock is George podcast features the mighty Steve Overland. Steve, of course, is the frontman, lead singer, vocalist for the UK hard rock band FM. If you're unfamiliar with FM, they debuted in 1986 with their album Indiscreet, very popular album. They followed it up with 1989's Tough It Out, which, for my money, is their best album they've put out. Well, they're all pretty good albums. It's tough to pick a favorite, but if I have to, it's Tough It Out from 1989. Steve is currently involved in a project on Frontier's music label with Alessandro DeVecchio. It's called Groundbreaker. Groundbreaker debuted on the label in 2018 with their self-titled release. Sometimes, well, a lot of times, Frontiers puts musicians together for various projects, and some of them work out and some of them miss the mark, but Groundbreaker is definitely one that hits the mark. This year sees the release of the second Groundbreaker album entitled Soul to Soul. Over the last 20 years, in addition to Groundbreaker, Steve Overland has been busy with many projects, not just FM. Of course, FM is working on their 13th studio album. Steve's going to talk about that. And just last year, they released Synchronized on Frontiers Music. From 2004 to 2007, Steve was in a project called The Ladder. In 2004 to 2017, he was in a band called Shadow Man. He was also part of a project called Ozone in 2015. In 2019, Steve teamed up with Simon Kirke of Bad Company for the project Lonerider. Name of that album is Attitude. Steve knows Simon Kirke because they were in Steve's first band way back in the day called Wildlife. Steve Overland also has a project under his last name called Overland. In 2020, he released the latest album under that banner called Scandalous. So Steve is a busy guy. And Groundbreaker is his latest project. The new album is Soul to Soul. And I talked to Steve about the new album, FM, Lonerider, and a whole lot more. Here's Steve Overland of Groundbreaker. If I knew absolutely nothing about Groundbreaker, how would you describe the band's music to me?
The band's music, I was approached by the record company, and they had a brief for me. They want me to make an out-and-out kind of melodic rock AOR album, hankering back to like all the great bands from the 80s, like Your Journeys, Foreigners, all of those things. And Alessandro was a friend of mine, the producer, Alessandro DeVecchio. So basically, I said I'd love to have a go, because obviously the other bands I'm in, FM, they lean to more towards the bluesier side of rock as well. But the concept of this was to basically go to when AOR and melodic rock was at its height and vibrant, which was sort of the 80s when it was at its best, I think, and that's what Groundbreaker is, really, George. That's where it's from. I think we've achieved it with both records, and it's great for me because it means I can reach back to the past when I'm writing, and nobody says, oh, that's a bit dated, because it doesn't matter. That's what the band's about. Do you know what I mean? That's what the band's about. So that's what Groundbreaker are. If you like sort of big songs, big choruses, lots of harmonies and lots of melody, all of those bands from the 80s like they were, then that's what Groundbreaker are. you
And
know.
Groundbreaker is sort of a collaborative effort on the songwriting side and on the band side. It's members of the Frontiers music roster for the most part. So
Yeah,
how does
yeah, yeah.
something like that come together with everybody involved?
Well, the first album we had Robert Sell on guitar, and I co-wrote sort of 4 or 5 of the tunes on that album with Robert. Um, and it was basically them just because obviously I know lots of musicians, so I could draw on my pool of musicians to make records. And I didn't really want to do that, George. I wanted to basically be given some new people to work with. And Serafino and the label did that, you know, with Robert. Ali, as I say, I knew Ali from touring. We see each other all over Europe because he's with 9 million bands. So I never know when he's on the bill, but he's backstage. You know, it's like, oh, you're in that band, are you? You know, so you know, we kind of meet up a lot. And when we finally worked together, it was just easy, George. He's such an easygoing guy to work with. And we just talk to each other about everything, and it works. And you know, I'd have to thank the record company for putting it all together and making it a living, breathing thing, which it now is, because we love making them. We'd love to do some dates with it. I think both albums have their place, and I'm really, really pleased with the way it's going.
Excellent. And the new album is Soul to Soul. It came out on November 12th on Frontiers. Do you want to talk a little bit about the music that you've released so far? We could talk about Standing on the Edge of a Broken Dream, kind of where that goes and what the message is there.
Yeah, sure. I mean, those songs, the songs that have been released for promos, are actually songs that Ali had written for Groundbreaker.
Okay.
As a taster for me to see what we were going to do with the second album. So I was busy working on various records and a new FM record and things like that. And Ali sent me that. He sent me There's No Tomorrow and a couple of other tunes that he got and said, look, what do you think about these songs for the new Groundbreaker record? And he sent a lot of other tunes that didn't make the record, you know, and I said, these are great songs. I didn't have anything to do with the writing of the 3 tunes that have been the first tasters of the album, the singles, if you like. But Ali lets me mess around with them. So I get them and I've edit them up and I basically arrange all the harmonies the way I want to do them. And when I do the lead vocal on them, George, although Ali's a great singer, when I get the demos of the songs, they've got great vocals on them. But he's always like, no, they're no good. Just do your thing on it, Stephen. So basically, my stamp on those songs is when I get to do all the vocals and arrange the vocals and do the lead vocal. That's when I'll make them mine, to you know, as such, you know. So I have written about 5 or 6 of the other songs with Ali on the record, but the first 3, as it happens, are all songs he sent to me. So I'm getting inferiority complex. You know, they're trying to tell me something, you know.
Did you write the song Carrie? Because that's actually my favorite song on the album.
No, that's another story behind that one, right? For years, Serafino's been saying to me, why don't you do an album of Michael Bolton songs? The early Michael Bolton songs when he was a rock singer, you know.
Yeah.
You said you'd kill that. And I'm always like, I don't want. Michael Bolton is a brilliant vocalist. I'm not going to go near any Michael Bolton songs because I won't be able to do them any better than Michael Bolton. So I've put it to one side and said I won't make the record. So he suddenly sent me this song, Carrie, which is a really old Michael Bolton song. And he said, I'm like, it's a Michael Bolton song. And he's like, yeah, but just have a go at it. See how you get on with it. So Ali did a new arrangement of it. So it's totally different to the original. I did my vocals on it and it came out great. So he got his way. There's an old Michael, it's a Michael Bolton tune from way back.
Maybe that's why it clicked with me, because I do like those early Michael Bolton albums. I could probably hook you up with the keyboardist on Fool's Game, because he's readily available out there if you want to do that. I think you could do Fool's Game pretty well.
I mean, I got to know. I mean, I did a lot of work with Terry Brock, who did all the backing vocals on that record, and used to sing with Michael a lot. Terry's an old friend of mine for years, and he sang backing vocals with me on the Tough It Out album, the FM record, and so we all kind of worked together in the end. People that worked it back in the day with Michael Bolton, and but you know, I'll steer clear of most of them because the vocal performances on those songs are so good. I'm not even going to go near them, you know. But I think we made Carrie our own, George, if you know what I mean. We made it our own, different sound to the original. So it's got a great place on the album. It's a really great song, you know.
Absolutely. Uh, One of the things I noticed is that, Frontiers is kind of embracing vinyl recently. Groundbreaker
Yeah.
didn't get a vinyl release for this one.
No, the problem we have at the moment is it did the first album did. There's
Yep.
a massive, huge backlog for vinyl,
Right.
so you simply can't get them pressed and done in time. I mean, we're having a problem now with another album I've just done and the new FM record to get the vinyl done in time. There's such a because of COVID, there's a huge backlog, and vinyl now has gone off the scale, hasn't it? Everybody wants vinyl releases, so to try and get your slot to do your record is just impossible. So I think they've just gone ahead and got the record out, and otherwise there might have been a wait for release to get the vinyl done. Maybe there'll be a limited run later, I don't know, but at the moment we've just gone without vinyl for this one.
Yeah, they've been
Simply because
doing
it's hard to get it done. At the moment.
right. Frontiers has been going into their back catalog to do stuff like that and release vinyls for
Yeah,
sort of their
yeah,
more popular items.
yeah, yeah.
You mentioned briefly that you'd like to take Groundbreaker out. Was it initially conceived as a studio project in addition to obviously your main band FM, and then Groundbreaker is kind of growing where live shows could be a possibility?
Yeah, yeah, absolutely. Yeah, I mean, I think always when these things are put together from people that are known from other bands, they always start out as a concept thing, don't they? But Groundbreaker, the first record sold so well, and it gained such momentum, and the reviews were fantastic, and the response to it, that we soon realized that we needed to make it a living, breathing thing and make some more of those records because people wanted them, and in doing that, before COVID, we were already talking about maybe doing the Frontiers Festival, the one they do in Italy every year, and
Mhm.
doing a few festival shows with Groundbreaker to make it something that fans can follow, so that it's not just a bunch of famous singers that get sent songs that make a record, because that's not what we want it to be. We want it to be a band, and with those first two records, you have such a great bunch of songs. I think you could have a fantastic live set. It would be amazing. So now that with the world sort of semi-fixing itself and things are starting to get back to normal, it'd be great if we could talk about doing some dates maybe next year. It'd be fantastic.
That would be great. Now, this style of music, AOR and melodic rock, those are the names they gave it today.
Yeah, yeah,
But
yeah.
obviously in the 80s, that was just rock. It was just rock radio, and that's what they
That
did.
was the
But
rock. That was the rock was there. Yeah, that was it. Yeah,
I mean,
Yeah,
Frontiers has embraced it, and I'm assuming that European countries have embraced it, but America's kind of abandoned it. So is Groundbreaker a tough sell in America?
honestly, to be honest with you, George, yes. I think at the moment that there's still a massive following for it because let's face it, it was invented there.
Right.
That's where it came from. That's where it came from, didn't it?
Yeah.
Foreigner and even earlier bands like your Kansases and all of those bands and all of that, although they're a bit more prog, all that melodic chorus harmony rock came from America. So all of the people that loved it back then can't be dead, can they? So in my opinion, I think there's still a great market out there for it, but only the way it is in the UK, it's getting it national exposure. That's the problem. Radio exposure, things like that. FM, we're lucky because FM can kind of cross over a little bit. It gets a bit more poppy in places. So we've been lucky enough to get on Radio 2, the biggest national radio station, on breakfast shows and things. But it's been tough to do that. And this music is hard to find outlets for at the moment, apart from live. I mean, we play festivals FM. I mean, we did a bunch of festivals before lockdown with Kiss, Def Leppard, and Whitesnake to 90,000 people. So people still want to go and see this. So they must still want to buy it, So, I think it'll come back. I think if we keep plugging away at it, and I always believe this, and make really great quality records in this genre, it will come back. It will come back round like all music does.
I think that a lot of people in America, they don't really know that this is still a viable music
No,
source. Like I
no.
discovered it through websites and stuff like that cater to melodic rock and AOR, and I still think that there's a lot of, I know people in my age group would love it. You know, I'm in my 40s. I grew up
Yeah,
with it. I still like to hear that song. I don't want to hear what they're feeding me on the radio. So, I mean, there's
yeah,
an audience. I just think it's an older audience.
yeah, yeah. Well, it will be an older audience. I mean, we get a lot of families, but like young fans of their fan, and they've been forced to listen to us by their parents as they've been growing up, and they've become fans. And we have a whole bunch of new fans, you know, which is great because it shows they're getting into this music. They keep pushing this music too, and there are other generations behind the ones that initially loved it, like the ones I played to initially. It will keep it alive, and I think as long as the bands can stay alive, you know, then it'll come back round, you know, and it will have it will come back round because it's, if you think about it, things like songs like "Don't Stop Believing" that had that new lease of life through what's the musical
The
thing that it was?
Sopranos
Yeah,
original,
yeah, you know, and all that stuff, and all of a
stuff
sudden,
like that.
I mean, my son came to me. He was gaming. My youngest son. He came. He said, "Oh, Dad, I've discovered this great new band." Said there's a brilliant song on this new game I'm playing. I said, "Oh yeah, brilliant. Yeah, what is it?" He said, "No, something about." So the singer's really high, sings really high on it. He said, and there's something about "Don't Stop." I said, "What? Don't Stop Me Now, Queen?" He went, "No, no." So I went up and it was "Don't Stop Believing." He's found this new band, you know. And I said, "They're not new, son. They're not new, you know." And he just loved the song, you know. And great songs are great songs, yours. And I think so many brilliant songs came out of melodic rock music, but they never die. They never die. They live on. A great song's a great song, you know. So, and
Absolutely.
there are a lot of them from that genre, from this genre of music. So, you know.
I agree. You, your main band is FM, obviously, and they're also signed to Frontiers Records.
Yeah.
And I wanted to know how FM formed that relationship with Frontiers.
Well, when FM reformed, we had a break. I mean, way back in the 80s, FM were quite a big deal in the UK and certain parts of the world. And we made various albums for CBS, Epic Records. Then decided that when grunge kicked in, and we could have carried on, but we were making no headway. We were just flatlining because our music, as we've just talked about, became particularly unfashionable, and Nirvana came along, and that was pretty much, we couldn't really go anywhere, you know. So we decided to have a break. Initially, we were going to have a short break, but it ended up being 11 years, you know. But then we got offered lots of festivals where you come and play. Can you get the original lineup back together? So eventually, after saying no for lots of years, we did one show, just so we do one show. We got back together, and it was a festival that we headlined, and it sold out. It never sold out before this festival. People came from all over the world. So basically, we reformed. I'm going to try and cut to the chase on your question. We decided we didn't want to sign to another major label. We said we'll try just doing it ourselves, keep it small, do away with all those outside pressures from record companies, you know. So we did, but after making one album, we decided we're going to try and do it properly again because it grew and grew and grew, and we couldn't really take care of all the everyday stuff that needed doing. And Serafino and Mario and all the people at Frontiers sort of came to us when we reformed because they were all fans of FM back in the day, the original FM stuff. So they came to us and said, "Look, what are you doing? Do you want to sign?" So eventually we signed to them, and we've had a great relationship with them, George, because they're old fans of the band. They love the music. They're massively helpful and a great support to the band, and we just get on great with them, you know, and they let us get on with it, and it's a great relationship, and long may it continue. We've just signed a new deal with them for 3 more albums, and if we're still alive, we'll maybe sign another one, you know. So, you know, now it's been a great relationship, and we've never really looked back. We're glad. Well, it speaks for itself. We've just signed another 3-album deal with them, so it's worked great.
Have you completed the next FM album?
Yeah, it's finished. It's just been delivered to the label. So all the touring that was planned for the last 2 years. Well, I'm out with FM at the moment. I've just taken, we've got a couple of days off. We're in the middle of a little short British tour. And then next year, endless. It's like all the last 2 years worth of work have rolled over into 22, 23. So we start in April with a full British tour for a month. We then go to Europe for a month. We've got some cruises, one with Alice Cooper around sort of Hawaii, and all that, which would be fantastic. And the rock cruises, things that go out, you know. And we're going to try and tag some American dates on to the cruises, stay out and do some dates, and just endless touring, really. And the new album should be out next spring. So we're really looking forward to it. It's as if the last 2 years kind of didn't really happen, you know? So it's great, really great, really great.
So are you currently touring on the Tough It Out Live support, or are you doing synchronized, or are you doing more of a hits package?
Yeah, no, synchronized. We did the Tough It Out thing when we did, we toured with Dan Reed Network and Gone Out over here. And we did the Tough It Out thing then. So because obviously synchronized came out in lockdown, we couldn't play the songs live, you know. So we put this little batch of dates together. We've done 2 in France, which went great. I was just testing the water to see how easy it would be to travel. Because don't forget, as well as COVID, we've had Brexit over here as well.
Right.
So we were just like, how easy will it be to take all this equipment out to Europe? Will it be much tougher? So we thought we'd test the water. We did 2 shows in France, which went great. And it's a bit more difficult, but it won't stop us. They were great. The shows were great. And we just want to get back out to everywhere. So little short in British tour at the moment of about 7 gigs. So we've done 3 of them. I've got 2 this weekend. No, it's 8, and then 3 next weekend. So, you know, just to test the water and get back out there and play synchronized, you know, on this little short leg.
You mentioned earlier that Alessandro DeVecchio is in like 8 million bands, but you're in like 1 million bands.
I am, yeah. That's why it's so hard to get the touring together. You know, it's like we have to find, there are another 3 months in the year, George, would be fine. We could do a Groundbreaker tour, you know, but it's just that thing of, that's what I mean. We'll be in Europe, and all of a sudden I'll be backstage and I'll see Ali, and I'll be like, "What are you doing here, Ali?" He said, "Well, I'm in so and so and so and so," and I'm like, "Oh, that band as well," you know. So he's just in all these bands that I don't know about. So we just hook up all the time, you know. And so yeah, we're lucky, George. I never take it for granted that I'm still this busy in my life at this stage in my career, and I really am busy, and I'm loving it. I still love it as much. So that's the main thing, you know.
I heard you and Simon Kirke are working on a new Lonerider album.
That's finished as well. Yeah, there's lots of great. Yeah, I mean, that was great. I mean, that's a different style of music again. Everything I do, I mean, people will just be thinking, "Oh God, he's on everything," you know. But everything I do has a purpose behind it. And I knew Simon and the Bad Company boys. I started in a band with Simon when Bad Company had a break when I was 18 years old, and they chose me to sing in this Bad Company. We signed to Swan Song Records, Led Zeppelin's label, like Bad Company were. And I was lucky enough to play with some of my heroes when I was a very young man, sing with Simon and a band. And I've always wanted to go back to that, making an album like those 3 Bad Company records, where you all go into a studio together, you play live, and it sounds like the band live. Not many overdubs. You don't then go in and track up the guitars 15 times and overdub this. It's just how the band sound. So Lonerider came from that concept, and I sent some songs to Simon, who I hadn't spoken to for 20 years. So I got to him through Bad Company's management. I just said, "Look, don't really remember me, Si. It's Steve from our wildlife days. You know, I'm working on something. It's very much Bad Company free based, and there's only one drummer that could possibly play on this for me. Just have a listen to these 3 songs, see what you think." I was on tour with FM I was in Cardiff in Wales, and the amazing thing was, within an hour, he got back to me via email and said, "Great to hear from you, Steve. These songs sound amazing. What do you want me to do?" So we flew him into the UK, and we went into a big residential studio, which there are not this big country house, and played it live and did it exactly like a Bad Company record. And it's come out great, George. I'm so proud of it. It's got that rawness to it, and the songs are great, and I'm really proud of it. So I hope the fans and the people like it when it comes out, you know.
Excellent. You also released a solo album. I think Overland is your solo project.
Yeah, it is, yeah.
Scandalous in 2020. So are you working on another one of those?
Yes. Yeah, I'm always working on them. I always have little sort of slots in my career where I think I'm going to start that, and I'm actually writing the next one with Robert Sell, who I wrote the first Groundbreaker record with, because Robert's great. I want to make this one like a really like the best of a Toto record. I love Toto as a band. I want it to be very musical. I want it to have great arrangement, and Robert's the man for that. He's just a genius at that kind of stuff. So me and Rob have started working on some tunes, and they really are that. They're really very Toto-ish. They're coming out fantastically well, George. So that's one that I keep divvying in the studio and doing bits on that. And, that's what keeps it alive and interesting for me. I still love it as much because I move around from thing to thing to keep it fresh, I guess, and everything's slightly different to the other thing, which is the great thing to be,
Agreed. Was Robert Saul not available to work on the current Groundbreaker Soul to Soul?
No, they wanted to move on with the record. We'd been talking of that one for a while, but Rob was working on something else and really tied him up for about 6 months. And he does this thing in a school that he runs in Sweden, which is like his thing for young musicians. And he's very into that, like teaching people and educating them in the music industry and things like that. So he wasn't able to commit to it at that time. So they wanted to move forward with it, which is why I'm now doing something with him now. We're great friends and he's a fantastic guy. So it was nothing like a fallout. It was just that they wanted to get on with the record. Rob said, look, I can't really say when I'm going to be able to do it. So we just decided to go ahead, and we got Sven on guitar, which was a great surprise because he's a genius guitar player. And, it's great. Who knows what will happen on the next one, eh? It's, but it's great surprise to hear the guitar solos when I got them. It was like, who is this? And he's done a fantastic job. So Rob and me still working together, just working on the new Overland stuff at the moment.
Excellent. Are there any other projects you're working on that I might have missed that are coming out soon?
I don't think I've got time, George, really. I think I'm fairly tied up with all this. And then, as I say, FM, I've been working a lot because my thing years ago, I used to write for other people and songs for films. And I've worked with a couple of young artists, young girl singers that have got production deals and things. And that's really quite different. That's like, blimey, I can't even think what it's like, R&B pop, but it's really great. Why they want to work with an Asian rock singer, these beautiful young girls, I don't know, but we've got some great results, and I'm making an album with those two girls. I'm working with them in December when the FM tour finishes, just to get some more stuff done. And I'm just keeping busy, and everything's different, and I'm loving it. It's really keeping me enthused, and I'm loving every minute of it. Really am.
Awesome. And the latest record is Groundbreaker Soul to Soul. It's out now. It's a fantastic record. I love it. And I appreciate you taking the time to come on the podcast today. And I wish you the best of luck with everything.
Thank you very much. Hopefully we'll speak soon. Have a nice Christmas and whatever. And thanks for talking to me. Brilliant.
Once again, I want to thank Steve Overland for coming on the Rock is George podcast. Be sure to check out his new album with Groundbreaker called Soul to Soul. It's streaming everywhere. You can also check out FM's latest album that came out just last year, Synchronized, while you're waiting for album number 13. And you can check out Lonerider on all streaming platforms as well in anticipation for their new album. Everything that Steve's done is out there. I highly recommend checking it out. If you like what you hear, buy it. Support the artist. I also want to thank Dustin Hardman and Frontiers Music for making this interview possible. You've been great. I've been George Dionne. I'll see you again soon.